Excited that Wednesdays bring one of our favorite people, a lecturer, former KGO talk show host. That's where this show was born, on a station called KGO, big talk radio station, big news and politically minded, kind of politically centric type radio station. And when it went away, we tried to retain connections with everybody who was so important to that community and to our community of colleagues. This guy is such a person. He's an author, lecturer, as I say, former KGO talk show host. He's the great John Rothman, everyone. John, boy, we've had every example of fire-breathing dragons of hateful rhetoric in the last 40 minutes. We've talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the former president, Donald Trump. He looks to be saying everything and anything to just smear and kick up as much dirt as he can, even dog whistles to violence, meaning he'll say something like, I don't think people are going to stand for this. He's and you can always, he's very clever. You can always suggest, he didn't really mean it that way. But as you see white nationalist militias regaining power, regaining strength, we talked about it yesterday. There's a great piece in Axios that really laid it all out. And Reuters did an even bigger piece on white nationalism and these militias that are building again across the country, and they are regaining strength. All of this rhetoric meeting that kind of phenomenon in America, I'm concerned about it, and I'm wondering how it's going to manifest itself with this next election.
No, I share your concern. Donald Trump is a danger to American democracy, and the case needs to be made by the Democrats and by those who are independents, and yes, by Republicans, that Donald Trump is unfit to be president of the United States. The fact that the Proud Boys are coming back and they say they're ready to campaign for Trump and do whatever he wants them to do should be an illustration to all of us of the danger of the Trump movement. And you and I agree on that. And I witnessed this week the testimony by Anthony Fauci and also by Merrick Garland. And I must tell you, the reflection of paranoia I was so appalled by the Republicans, I can't even begin to tell you.
Well, so, the Republicans also, just because you mentioned it, John, didn't mean to interrupt, but when you talk about somebody should say something, and you have to keep this in the dialogue, and Democrats have to hold them accountable, and Republicans have to step up and hold them accountable. Of course, as you know, it's just the opposite. They've fallen into line. They get in almost literally a uniform with the red ties and the dark suit, and they show up to his court case. They show up to his case in Manhattan.
And that's why he has to lose, Mark. That's why he has to lose and lose big. And that's why the Democrats have to take the House of Representatives and retain control of the Senate. We're fighting a battle for the future of this great country.
You mentioned the Senate. I am concerned about a seat that normally would not concern me. And I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. I'm a registered independent. But I wonder about New Jersey, with Menendez stepping aside now, running as an independent because he wants, I think it's a fundraising thing. He just wants money to pay for his court cases. Menendez is a corrupt guy. But that said, you see some Senate seats vulnerable, and the Democrats may lose the Senate. Am I right,
I hope
John?
not. They've got to campaign vigorously. And my hope, and I really believe this, is that as the campaign progresses and the Republicans articulate their points of view, particularly at the convention and post-convention, that the American people will wake up to the danger. And may I tell you, I hope that the Republicans suffer a crashing defeat, and that as a result, they have to rebuild their party, and hopefully they will rebuild their party and brand it differently. I always remember, and I've told you this before, that Donald Trump Jr. on the Ellipse on January 6th said this is no longer the Republican Party, it's the party of Donald Trump. And we must prevent the Republican Party from falling into that abyss. So I'm hopeful. I must say I was horrified by the Republicans in the House of Representatives, both in their interrogation of Anthony Fauci and Merrick Garland. They reveal themselves to be morally bankrupt. And this is not the Republican Party that I grew up in. This is not the Republican Party which I teach courses about. So the Republican Party has to be restored, or else this country is in deep trouble.
Well, you and I part company on that, because I think the Republican Party is not around anymore. The Republican Party that you may look back wistfully at it. I think the Republican Party has been broken for a long time.
That's exactly why it has to be rebuilt. You and I agree completely. The Republican Party has to reclaim its soul.
It's funny. I mean, this is a digression, and I will get to Biden and the Wall Street Journal piece.
Yes.
But I wonder what you mean. You know, you say that a lot, John, and I have such immense respect for you. I always kind of do think, well, what does he mean by that? I mean, because the Republican Party doesn't represent any ideals that I hold dear. That I can, I mean, I
agree with you, but that means the party has to restore itself. Remember, the Republican Party went from being a right-wing party to a centrist party to a even more central party under President Eisenhower, and then they reverted back to Barry Goldwater, and then they came back with Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. So, look, this is a two-party system in this country, and that means that party has to function. I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that if the Republicans suffer a crushing defeat, they will have to rebuild the party in the image which is more centrist for the American people.
I see. So when you say rebuild, you're talking about the party reconstituting itself in a different way, really, than much of the
right now it's the
extremism.
party of Trump. It has to go back to being the Republican Party.
Well,
and I would never be a Republican today. You understand that's not my political ideology.
But before Trump, John, you had these extremists who are in the court. Right now, the court is populated by extremists who didn't get appointed there by Trump. I mean, I get it. He got 3 appointments, but prior to that, you had Republican appointments that were quite concerning. I mean, George Bush.
That's why I would never vote for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very clear. The days when an Earl Warren, who was a Republican, governor of California, that's the kind of republicanism that I'd like to see restored. But there's no point belaboring the point, because at the moment, Donald Trump has a stranglehold on the Republican Party.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And I always just wanted to tease that out with you a little bit, because I've heard you say it before, but now I kind of understand what you mean.
And you'll hear me say it again and again and again.
Yeah. Talk to me about the Biden campaign. First of all, Hunter is being prosecuted in a way that likely would never occur were his last name not Biden. He certainly, I was making the point in the first half hour, he certainly gained a lot of things, including millions of dollars as a result of his last name being Biden. Now he gets a court case because his last name is Biden, and it's, while maybe largely a political exercise, maybe they can win on the X's and O's. What's going to happen here?
Well, first of all, Hunter Biden is not Joe Biden. And the Hunter Biden case is of little concern to me, except that he should get the justice which he is entitled to, innocent or guilty. And that's what will happen. What concerns me more is the story that appeared in the Wall Street Journal about the question of the cognitive abilities of Joe Biden. He is, at this moment, in France to celebrate the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And by the way, one of my favorite films that dealt with D-Day, and I hope people watch it, The Longest Day. It is a fascinating film. But having said that, if Joe Biden is unfit, then that has to be revealed to the American people, and the Democrats will have to deal with it. But I don't think Hunter Biden is a question. I think it's a tragedy. You know, Mark, I have 2 sons. I'm not accountable for what my sons do or have done. I'm not accountable for their what they do, because they have to be responsible in their own lives for what they choose to do. And I think to hold Joe Biden responsible for what Hunter did is a mistake. Did Hunter Biden abuse the fact that he was the son of the vice president and then a president? Absolutely. Is he an addict? And those of us who've dealt with people who have addiction understand it's a sickness. That's a simple reality. I want Joe Biden to run a campaign vigorously based on the issues and the stands that he's taken. And if he is incapable of doing it, the Democrats will have to find somebody else, and that will probably be Kamala Harris.
The Wall Street Journal piece, first of all, I'd suggest, and I have not read the entire piece, I've only seen excerpts, but I have two things to say. First of all, the Wall Street Journal has a political bent, and the political bent is toward the GOP and away from the Democrats. That may or may not inform this. It's interesting in the piece, and I'm seeing all the various quotes, it's Republicans who seem to be quoted liberally in the piece about the.
Of course, it's Republicans.
About the cognitive acuity of the president. Now, it should be said, and this is the second point. I'm always looking for evidence that the dude is not like completely there, or so I watch the back and forths that he has with various members of the press. I listen to him speak for an hour on these podcasts with people. There's no script there. There's no prompter. And he seems fine. I mean,
we agree.
Yeah, I
really
think
don't Democrats wish that he were 18 instead of 81, but he is 81 and his age is a factor, and who is vice president will matter. But I agree with you 100%. 100%.
The Biden campaign manager, Julie Chavez Rodriguez, brushing back the premise of the Journal story, asked about it this morning. She said, as someone who has spent and continues to spend a lot of time with the president, continues to, I think ensure that I'm living up to sort of his strategic approach at every turn. I will say that he is, just one of the strongest leaders I've been able to engage and to be able to work with and to advise. I mean, she's the campaign.
Issue, Mark, the issue is that he's 81 years old.
Right.
And that's the issue.
No, the other dude's 78. I mean, to me, it's 6 1/2 dozen. I mean, it really is. I don't.
Well, Donald Trump is almost 80. This is simply the reality.
And on some level, I'd suggest, respectfully, then I'll shut up and let you talk, but I'd suggest that it's a question of policy. It's a question of strategy. It's a question of perspective. I don't care if the guy running against Biden is 45 years old. If it was a 45-year-old Donald Trump, this corrupt, lawless, feckless man who is only in it for himself and hires his corrupt cronies to be cabinet officials and will essentially sack the country, it wouldn't matter to me whether he's 45, 95, 65, etc. So I know
you're right. And the simple truth is that Donald Trump must never sit in the White House again. We are going to have an opportunity at the end of this month to see Donald Trump and Joe Biden on the same stage. They will have a debate. And I think that will be critical in establishing the credibility that so many people seek in who they vote for. May I tell you, I could never vote for a person who was convicted, a convicted felon on 34 counts, and a man who clearly is as corrupt as Donald Trump is. But as I like to say, don't confuse people with the facts. And the Donald Trump movement is a cult, and they don't care.
This probably isn't the time to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I need to see what somebody's convicted of. I need to see a candidate. I think there are people running around with low-grade felonies who probably could lead any number of public bodies and who could help craft public policy quite responsibly. Just because someone's a felon, to me, doesn't necessarily mean that they can't do a job.
I'm only talking about Donald Trump, for heaven's sake.
Right, no, I get it.
The
That's
man
what I'm talking. I get it. And so this idea somehow that people are going, well, he's a felon, I would never vote for a felon, it becomes a proxy argument for I don't want to vote for Trump. I get it, but I'm just saying.
No, I'm not sure it's a proxy argument. With all due respect, there are many Republicans who are indicating that. How do you think it is that Nikki Haley got 22% of the Republican vote in Indiana? It is because Republicans uniformly, I think, reject the notion that Donald Trump is a moral person. What they are saying is that they agree with many of his policies. I don't have a problem with people agreeing with his policies, but Donald Trump should never be president of the United States. Liz Cheney said it best. He has to be kept out of the Oval Office. The fact that he was convicted by a jury of his peers on 34 separate counts, and the fact that Jack Smith is going to also ultimately have his day in court. All you have to do is look at January 6th. Donald Trump has no business being the president. And that
Thank
case
you.
has to be made by the Democrats.
Those are the cases that really matter.
Of
J6
course.
documents. Now, when you say his policies, John, what policies does he have? You
The
said I don't have
question of
any
a woman's
problem.
right to choose. Who controls a woman's body? It should be a woman. His foreign policy positions. His statement on Ukraine that he would settle the problem within 24 hours. And
Well, you
clearly
have a
in
problem with
favor
those
of Putin.
policies. You
I
said
sure
I don't.
do.
You said I don't have a problem with people who embrace his policies. You
That's
said
right.
that.
If they choose to vote for a person because of his particular policies, that's their business. My job and my job anyway, is to expose his positions, which are not within the mainstream of American life. Do you understand that Ukraine may be defeated and probably will be in large measure because of the policies of Donald Trump and the Republicans? And that is the tragedy. And let me also point out to you, another major issue is the question of global warming. And I say this respectfully, but we are in deep trouble. And if you listen to the Secretary General of the United Nations, he essentially said today, this world is in deep, deep distress. And Donald Trump would withdraw from the Paris Accords again. Donald Trump doesn't seem to care one whit about global warming. That's another reason. You know, all of the issues we talk about mean nothing if the world is going to go through this process in large measure because of our own actions. Not completely, but in large measure. So there are a host of issues. Now, if someone believes, as Senator Jim Emhoff believes, former senator, believes that global warming is a myth, they can vote for Donald Trump. But anybody who believes that global warming, anybody who wants Ukraine to win, anybody who is concerned about the question of Ukraine, they can't vote for Donald Trump. And that's the case that has to be made. I can make the case of Donald Trump's immorality, and I'm happy to do it. But that's not what the American people, at least the Trump supporters, are prepared to do. Why do I think that Biden will win or a Democrat will win? Because the American people will reject the policies being promulgated by Donald Trump and the Republican Party today.
Yeah, I mean, you may be right on the bottom line, but I don't think people vote on policy, although some of the stuff that you've talked about just now may cut through, like maybe the exceptions to that. For example, a woman's right to choose.
What happened in Kansas, please, where a woman's right to choose
I
was
just
on the
said a
ballot,
woman's right to
and
choose, John.
a state that is solidly Republican repudiated that. And
I
let
get
me
it.
tell you, after the summer we are going to have,
Kansas is not going blue, John. Am I right or wrong?
you know something? They will vote Republican, but they
Right,
won't vote for
exactly.
those policies. They
Right.
won't vote for those policies, and that's the key. I'm interested
but-
in Wisconsin. I'm interested in
Sure.
Michigan. I'm interested in Ohio. I'm interested in states where, because of the way the system is set up with the electoral vote, that they will really matter. Unfortunately, Kansas and
100% agree.
Hawaii don't have the great weight because their number of electors is limited.
Schumer has done something quite good, I think. He's talking about, and Kim had it in the news, about IVF and contraception and putting that in the crosshairs of
Absolutely.
a vote. So
And if Kim comes back on, we talked about IVF when all of this first came down, Roe v. Wade, and I said to her, that's what they're going to go after next.
Yeah.
And I was correct on that. And I know it's hard for people to grasp, but that's where they are. And the next thing is contraception. They want to limit contraception. Well, this is something which we better understand. The Supreme Court, by the way, is going to play a central role. We will have, before the end of the month, a series of Supreme Court cases, including the abortion pill. Will that be available? We will have the question of presidential immunity. And let me say a quick word about Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. These two individuals who clearly are biased and clearly have, I think they're corrupt. They sit on the Supreme Court. No one is going to have them removed from the court. And I would predict to you, when the question of presidential immunity comes up, wouldn't surprise me if those are the two who uphold Donald Trump's position. So I say this respectfully, but it's also a battle for the United States Supreme Court. The Democrats must win if we are going to have a semblance of a national consensus. And I am concerned about IVF, and I am concerned about birth control and contraception in general. Men and women must have access. Mark, if somebody tried to tell me what to do with my body, let me tell you something. That four-letter word that appeared a few minutes ago by accident on your show, well, that's what I would think.
First up in the Senate today is a Democratic-led bill that would codify the right to contraception nationwide, including emergency contraception morning after pills like Plan B.
Yes.
And Republicans, Schumer is saying, are outside the mainstream on abortion and broader reproductive issues. And he feels clearly that forcing them to vote on the record would make their positions clear to the public. And
Absolutely.
It would be, yeah,
100%.
I mean, it's a smart strategy, I think.
Now, may I point out quickly, in defense of Donald Trump, he has come out in favor of IVF. He believes in vitro fertilization is something which should be permitted. I hope that causes a rift among people who would support him.
Well, I mean, he changes with the wind. He knows that politically it's a less viable position, this ridiculous right-wing activist
100%.
position on contraception and
100%.
IVF. So I don't believe anything that the man says.
As long as he's not in the Oval Office. Remember, he made a pledge that he would put justices on the Supreme Court who would rescind Roe v. Wade. Every American must understand, and if I were putting together a Democratic strategy, I'd be playing those words over and over again. That's the reason a woman doesn't have the right to choose. And that's why Donald Trump has to be repudiated, among other reasons.
Right. I think that's so well said, that he needs to own that which he was claiming he wanted to own. And I love that you mentioned global warming and the climate crisis. It's a chaotic situation that is being made more chaotic by the resistance of the developed world to really do things aggressively. And we're going to be in this punishing heat dome that's taking charge over the West. I mean, this is sort of short term. That's weather, less climate, more weather. But these sorts of extreme weather events during which places in the West particularly, but also nationwide and worldwide, will see record heat and punishing heat and consequential heat, meaning it'll affect agriculture, it'll affect life.
It's going to affect us all. And if we don't get cracking on this, we're going to have a worldwide problem. Look what's happening in India with the climate crisis and their access to drinking water. Look at what's happening around the world. We must take a lead. And whatever people complain about Joe Biden, he's had the courage to stand up and say just that. I hope it isn't too late.
Last thing I want to ask you about is what happened in Mexico. Once again, our south of the border friends whose world is informed by a strong patriarchy, the Latino communities there, as you know, are patriarchal historically. Catholicism, which is the dominant religion there, is a patriarchal faith. Women can't be priests. Women can't participate in any number of the religious rites historically, and it continues to be the case. And so they elect a woman as their president. And I'm wondering if you could speak to the world south of the border politically. They have many women, as you know, in judicial positions of power, as well as in legislative positions of power.
Let me point out the new president was mayor of Mexico City. Those of us who have spent time in Mexico City know she was a very successful mayor. She wasn't elected because she was a woman. She was elected because she had a record that was frankly very productive and very useful. Will she succeed in Mexico, which I would remind you is riddled with corruption, which is riddled with, a variety of problems, including political assassinations and disruptions, which we saw in this last election. But I have every hope that she will be as successful as president of Mexico. Remember that a president serves a 6-year term. A president cannot be reelected. And so she will have that clean slate for 6 years to do what she can. If her record as mayor of Mexico City is any indication, I have hope that she will be a successful president of that country.
She certainly has a lot on her plate. You're right. It's a cartel-ridden country, and that's
it's
only
horrific.
getting worse. Yeah. Last thing, I like to always take a little hate in and respond to it. So here it is from Delwood. Mark and Rothman are willing to die on the belief that Biden will suddenly pull out a victory by showing up in a debate as having a sharp mind. Our eyes tell us otherwise every day. I just gave you examples of my eyes not telling me otherwise. I think
Delwood, yeah. I want you to watch what happens tomorrow when the president speaks in France. I want to see what you think of his speech. And I would also respectfully say that We have never had in recent years a president who has accomplished more than Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a very effective leader, and you may not like him. I understand that, and I understand why Republicans don't like him. But I would suggest to you that history, comparing Biden's administration and Trump's administration, will be far kinder to Biden. If you ask me, Delwood, and I'll answer you honestly, I wish that Joe Biden were 20 years younger. I do. I think it would make a whole different approach. But,
well, Delwood, I'd like to tell you something. I wish we were all 20 years younger. How's that? I mean, I would take 20 years, and look at me, I'm still a vibrant young man, John, and I would take 20 years off of my age right now. Just go ahead, take it off. As long as we're wishing for taking decades off of people's age, I want part of that.
Listen,
that's all I'm trying to say.
The genes that you have inherited from your parents.
Indeed.
I'm looking forward to your 100th birthday party.
Oh, thank you. John Rothman, his podcast is Around the Political World with John Rothman. I believe they rebroadcast this conversation typically in
They do. And
in that world, in that platform.
I want to suggest again, I appreciated being with you last night. It was an excellent event, but I want to urge people to support Mark Thompson's program. And of course, you can hear me not only on Around the Political World with John Rothman, but on the Voice of San Francisco. I do 10 minutes on each podcast, one talking international relations and national relations, and the other dealing very parochially with San Francisco. It's a lot of fun, and I enjoy it. And I'm very grateful to Mark Thompson and the Mark Thompson listeners for their support.
And you can find it, subscribe at the Voice of San Francisco with John Rothman. And of course, as I said, Around the Political World with John Rothman. And here on Wednesdays, our pal, our brother, John Rothman, everybody. Bye,
With
John.
great pleasure. Bye.